Good Friday morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to yet another weekly Friday edition of the Alan Fitz Podcast, aka also known as the Chat. Hello there, my name is Alan Fitz. I am the host for the program, and welcome into the show live from our studios in Amarillo, Texas. And as always, before I get started, I want to welcome in those three main listening audiences that always, well, they do us a favor out there. Not really, but one of them definitely doesn't. One is those who agree with what we talk about and they leave positive public good remarks about our podcast. They carry things over to their family and friends. Our number two listening audience is, well, they don't just quite agree with everything that we talk about, but they do leave us positive criticism out there in social media land, and we definitely appreciate those folks. And thirdly, lastly, and always leastly, if you will, the haters out there. Folks, we don't pay any attention to those people, and you all know who I'm talking about. They can't see the forest for trees, so we just don't pay any attention to them. Well, this podcast here is going to be a little bit different from the podcast that I normally do. And we have got a lot of people that want to hear our side of things. And that seems to be what the problem is with people that use Facebook in the wrong ways. It seems like everybody believes everything that they read on Facebook, but they actually don't contact anyone else for their side of things. So we're going to be telling a different sided podcast on the show today. We're going to be talking about Texas Panhandle Updates and Colby Johnson, if you will. We're also going to be introducing you to his mother, Brenda Sims Johnson. We're going to touch on her very lightly, but Colby is, ladies and gentlemen, he's not what you think he is, and that's how this podcast gets started this morning. I thought a lot of people out there are kind of shaking their heads, and they have been for about 3 years now, not understanding why Colby comes up with what he comes up with. And for two people that have never met each other, I'm really surprised that Colby Johnson hasn't been man enough to reach out and to talk to me and get my side of things. But he seems to be a one-sided person out there, if you will. So let's break into this podcast right now, and let me tell you how everything got started with Colby Johnson and Texas Panhandle Updates versus myself. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about his criminal background. I know a lot of you people out there, and I've been reading the comments that have been coming in. Well, Colby says he doesn't have a criminal record. And I beg to differ, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to go ahead and start off by telling you straight up here on the podcast that we obtained public records. Okay. We have obtained these from the Hutchinson County Sheriff's Office in Stinnett, Texas. We've reached out and received public information, dispositions, convictions, and of that nature and so forth from the Gray County Sheriff's Office in Tampa, Texas. We've also reached out to a few other counties across the Panhandle. We've reached out to the Nebraska Department of Public Safety out of Omaha, and also with the convictions that he does have in Texas. We did contact the Public Records Division of the Texas Department of Public Safety in Austin, and that was basically just to confirm more of what Gray County had to say more than anything else. Well, now where we're going to start off with this, and I'm going to have to back up, and we'll get again, we'll get into Colby's Johnson's criminal record that he is so hardly trying to convince people that doesn't exist. I want to first of all start off by saying that this individual, and I don't know if a lot of you have noticed this on Texas Panhandle Updates, but Mr. Johnson has a grandiose appearance to himself as the head administrator of Texas Panhandle Updates on Facebook. Now, as I get this podcast started this morning, I invite you all that if you're sitting in front of a computer right now listening to the YouTube channel where this podcast is being heard right now. I invite you, and the reason I invite you to do this is because I want you to follow along with me on something. I want all of you to go to allenfitts.com. That's ALLENFITTS.com. That's my name.com. And I want you to look, when the page opens up, I want you to click on the More tab up there at the top of the page. And I want you to go to the Colby Johnson story link. A lot of you probably have noticed that this has been shut down, that particular page, most of the week. But I want you to go and click on it. It is open now. And follow along with me as I begin this podcast talking to you about a man with a hidden secret. When you go on the webpage, you will first notice that Mr. Johnson, and this was actually captured. We actually screenshotted these photos from some of the items that he posts on Texas Panhandle Updates. And you'll notice it begins off, you see these different colored icons. Okay. And I don't know how many of you have actually noticed this, but Mr. Johnson seems to enjoy the word fire. And I want you to keep the word fire in mind because on the second half end of this podcast, this is where the criminal history comes in. But you'll notice when you go to these different colored icons, grass fires, traffic accidents, whatever the case may be, and apparently he must have Jason utilize an AI for him. Slow down, move over, or get pulled over. I don't know how many of you have noticed this on his page, but apparently one or two things is happening with this. Either Mr. Johnson doesn't realize that people know the law, or secondly, he's just too dumb to understand that this is what he needs to put at the bottom of each icon with his grandiose or being into a grandiosity position, if you will. For those of you that don't know what grandiose is on an individual, he appears to try to look bigger than what he actually is. And I'm going to break this down for you while you're looking at these pictures. First of all, the law in Texas, and I want to specifically name this for those of you that may not know the law. Apparently, Mr. Johnson does not know the law because there is no law on a grass fire that is written in the language of any bill on file at the state capitol in Austin that says that you have to slow down or move over for a grass fire or you're going to get pulled over. Okay, that's not what the law says. The terminology that he is using with these icons, apparently he's got something mixed up here. What the actual law in Texas says is that if there is an emergency vehicle pulled over on the side of the road, such as a law enforcement officer, he's pulled somebody over on a traffic stop, that you must slow down 20 miles an hour below the posted speed limit if you cannot vacate the lane that is closest to the emergency vehicle. In other words, let's say, for example, you're here in Amarillo. Let's say that one of the Amarillo motor cops has someone pulled over on the shoulder and you're in the right-hand lane. You cannot move over to the left lane because there's too much traffic. There may be too many 18-wheelers over there. They're not yielding to you, which they don't have to yield to you. And you can't move over, then you're required to slow down at least 20 miles an hour below the posted speed limit. In this case, that would be down to 40 miles an hour because the speed limit on Interstate 40 all the way through Amarillo, with the exception of the far east end and far west end, is 60 miles an hour. Those other ends, it goes up to 75. He is making on like he's trying to purport in his grandiosity to say that you have to slow down for a grass fire or move over for a grass fire or you're going to get pulled over. Ladies and gentlemen, common sense, even the dumbest person in the world, if you will, would dictate that if you're on the highway and fire is jumping across the highway, and it's not very far across, maybe less than an eighth of a mile, uh, common sense would tell you to put your foot to the metal and go through it, okay, if you can do it safely. I'm not sure why he does that, but he does. Now, let's move over on that page that I created, and let's talk about some of these photographs that are posted on here. And I have talked, I'm not going to say who it is, and it's not just to protect their privacy, folks. It's also a matter of professionalism. I have talked to one of the executives at KAMR Television here in Amarillo. Basically, what you're seeing is photos that were taken by a cameraman that works at KAMR here in Amarillo. And Colby Johnson puts these photos on his webpage. He does not tag KAMR. He does not indicate in wording that these are photos are courtesy of KAMR. He doesn't put any kind of script in there, and it makes it look like that he is actually standing and making all these photos in downtown Amarillo. And this was during this Epstein file crap that was going on down there. A totally useless event to attend. However, there are some people that are involved in that. But again, in grandiosity, him wanting to be grandiose, to be the bigger person, again, thinking he's better than everyone else. It looks like he's right up on them, taking these pictures. Again, leaves no credit whatsoever for KAMR. And they have basically, without really coming out 100% and saying it, they would have sued him a long time ago for this. This is photography infringement. Don't have permission to use the images or anything like that. And I'm not repeating word for word of what this executive did tell me, but KAMR would sue him if they knew they could get something. But then again, you sue Colby Johnson, you're not getting much of anything. Okay. Now, excuse me. Let's talk about how Colby Johnson and I came to be and why Colby Johnson talks so bad about me, why he seems to hate me the way that he does, or he at least purports to you readers of his page out there. 3 years ago, we had moved up here from across the state. We came from the East Texas area. And before we bought our home in Spearman up in Hansford County, we had parked here in Amarillo because what had happened was we were selling our home from down in East Texas, and we were going to use the funds from the sale of that house to buy property. But during this time, I had located two different properties in the Spearman, Texas area. One of them I went to, didn't like it that much. The one that we bought and we still currently own there in Hansford County, definitely fell in love with it. And again, folks, we still own that property, but we're not living there. And the reason we're not living there, and I know a lot of you have probably questioned yourself, well, where they're living in Amarillo, why don't they just go back to Spearman and live in that house? The reason that we're not living in that home, ladies and gentlemen, is not because the realtor could force us to do it, but the realtor suggested that if we could, to move everything out of the house and live somewhere else, and it gives a bigger opening, if you will. It generates someone that comes to look at the house, a potential buyer. It gives them a better look of the house. It's empty, and we agreed with that, and that's why we don't live there. So I put in the radio station in Spearman, Texas, KSPR radio. Uh, but let me back up just a little bit. Let's come back to when we moved to Amarillo. There was a woman by the name of Brenda Sims Johnson. Now, for those of you that don't know who Brenda Sims Johnson is, this is Cody's mother. Okay, this is a woman and a family that came from Alliance, Nebraska. Okay, they came down here to the Amarillo area. Now, when we first moved up here from East Texas, I didn't know Amarillo from a hill of beans. Okay, folks, I didn't know how to get around Amarillo. It was kind of scary. Big 200,000 plus city. Someone suggested to me during that time that the quickest way they had moved from somewhere up north. I think it was somewhere a man that I had met had he was from somewhere up around Indiana or Illinois or somewhere up in that area. Had told me, hey, just somebody that I randomly ran across and I was asking directions to. He suggested that I go to work for DoorDash while I was, kind of sitting around waiting on the house to sell back in East Texas. He said that's the way he learned Amarillo. And I went home and I discussed it with my better half, who is now my wife. And she thought, you know what, that's an excellent idea. We don't even know where a service station, a gas station is around here. So I signed up for the DoorDash app, blah, 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 went through all of that, finally got on it. And ladies and gentlemen, in 3 months, I learned this city. Okay. I don't even have to have a GPS to get around it. During the time that I was running for DoorDash, I would sit up at the McDonald's I-40 in Western, and I kind of did this on my own because I was very observant with my surroundings. Okay. And I started picking up orders from all around that area. And here's a lot of free plugs for a lot of you restaurants out there. But the truth is the truth. Okay. I would get, a McDonald's order would pop up on Western. Bam. I was there. I was the only driver there. I would hit the thing. I'm here. I take that order off somewhere. I would pick up orders from IHOP. I would pick up orders from Dunkin' Donuts, Taco Bell, Chili's, Aspen Creek Grill, Burger King. Didn't pick up. I was thinking of Brahms, but Brahms is not on the platform with DoorDash, or at least they weren't 3 years ago. And this is where I began learning Amarillo. Well, I had been going into the restaurant there at I-40 in Western, and I don't remember. It was just casual conversation that came up. I think Brenda Sims walked over to me. And I believe she asked me if I was a DoorDash driver. Yes, we got into some conversation. Back in those days, she didn't I never observed her doing anything except mopping the floor. I think she was just basically a janitor for McDonald's on Western. I had told Brenda that we had moved up here from across the state, and that we're looking at buying. We had found a house up in Spearman, there in Hansford County, that we were going to buy the property, that we already had a buyer on our house that lived in Canyon, which I thought was kind of a coincidence that we had come across the state. Now we found a guy that's going back across the state to buy our home there, 7 acres. And I had mentioned to Brenda, and I wish I'd have never done this, folks, because and I should have slapped myself upside the head for even mentioning it to her. But she, at that point, started talking about her son, which is Colby Johnson. And she said that he owned this page that was called Texas Panhandle Updates. He was real big into reporting news from across the Panhandle, yada yada, this, that, and the other. And I thought, really, I really wish you would do that. No. And I told her, I said, no, Brenda, I really don't want to do that. But no, she kind of insisted that it would help me keep going, and she kept on and on and on. And I finally said, fine, just have it good. A couple of days later, and at this given time, the closing had appeared on our house. So we were already had moved out of Amarillo and were en route to Spearman. Getting the radio station put in up there and everything. Well, and I'm sure a lot of you know about this. And, I could care less about it. It's the Alan Fitz parody page. And again, I don't care what these people say about me. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And it doesn't matter what they say. This is a get back page, is all it is. It's a retaliatory page. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, one day it will be shut down. I can assure you that. But anyway, to get back on track with this story, apparently they had found out back in East Texas and started transmitting all of this stuff that had been said back in that time era about 3 or 4 years ago. And naturally, people, and you people that are listening to this podcast, naturally, All of you are exactly the same. You believe everything that you read on social media, and not one of you have had the guts to come ask me anything to get my side of the story. But Colby Johnson begins believing everything that he is being seeing with his eyes, and then a threat is made to Mr. Johnson from the parody page that if he doesn't cooperate with them, that they're going to get him shut down up here in the Panhandle. That they've got the ways and the means to do it, and of course, I would assume that Mr. Johnson probably got a little bit skitsy at that time, so he began turning on me. And folks, what he actually did, and again, this is the time that we'd already got the radio station up and running in Spearman. He began, I guess a better word for this is a retaliatory strike against me, saying that they don't have any affiliation with the radio station. They don't want people thinking they have affiliation. And just went into this big, grandiose tirade, if you will, on his Facebook page. And I don't know where he came up that we had some type of professional relationship or any kind of an association with him. But again, like I said earlier, I told his mother, Brenda, I really would prefer you not to do this. But Brenda went ahead, and got it all started. And anyway, first one thing led to the other, and he just, did a complete 360 and turned against me. And I've never done anything to the man. Okay. Which, no, it did not bother me. I thought it was kind of strange in the beginning, but then I learned more and more about him. I started investigating him, just like I've investigated him for this podcast. I started telling some people about what had happened. That no, we don't have any association or affiliation with Texas Panhandle Updates, and we're going to stay clear of them. We don't need that kind of publicity going on and all that. Well, then the threats begin coming out with him, and this is what, folks, this is what Colby Johnson does. If somebody says something bad about him, if they don't agree with what he puts on the Texas Panhandle Updates page, he begins making threats that he has a lawyer that's going to be sending out uh, letters and lawsuits and all of this mess. And folks, I'm here to tell you right now, there's not a bit of that true. That is 100% fabricated grandiosity proportions that he likes people to believe. And but there was this episode that did occur in Spearman that I will get into with you now. And I didn't think the man was serious. I mean, I've had a lot of people tell me, and ladies and gentlemen, prior to the recording of this podcast, I have made trips to Stinnett. I've made trips to Borger. I've made trips to Pampa. And basically, different people in these three different communities don't even know each other. But they all say the same thing about Colby Johnson. He likes to run his mouth. He can't hold a job. He doesn't have any money to sue anybody. And he's been in trouble with the law. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the second half of the podcast. And it's just first one thing and the other. But what situation did happen was, and I'm sure everybody that's listening that ever listened to the radio station in Spearman knew that on Fridays that the chat came on. It's 3 o'clock. I was diehard set on getting this out, and we from 3 to 4 p.m. every Friday we did the chat. We also did the Wake Up Texas Panhandle show from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every morning. And looking at the forecast, I remember that it was supposed to begin raining during the night one Friday night. And anybody that knew me up there, my next door neighbors, or anybody out in the community that ever drove past the house there at 3rd and Brent, always would say Alan Fitz mows his yard right after daybreak on Saturday morning. It was just a thing that I did. It was a normal routine that I did. And looking at that forecast, I'm like, well, when we get off the show, I told my program director, who is now my wife, I told her, I said, when I get off the show this morning, I'm going to go ahead and mow the grass. That way I can get it done. I don't have to worry about getting out and mowing in the rain, the grass clumps up, and all this, that, and the other. About a half an hour before we got off the air, I had received a text message. And ladies and gentlemen, honestly, I don't even remember who sent it to me. An individual had texted the KSPR Facebook page and said that Colby Johnson was headed to the Hansford County Sheriff's Office to talk to Bob Mahaffey. Now, for those of you that don't know who Bob Mahaffey is, he is the current sheriff of Hansford County there in Spearman. And anyway, reading that text message that he was going to have, he wanted to file charges against me because I said something bad about Texas Panhandle Updates and yada yada this, that, and the other. And I didn't, when I first read it, honestly, I didn't think anything about it. I said, well, he's just running his mouth. He's not going to show up here. And 9 o'clock came and I jumped on the lawnmower. Later on that day, I had gone to the sheriff's office. I believe it was after lunch. There was something, an accident or something had occurred earlier. I believe it was the day before, and Sheriff Bob Mahaffey was issuing a press release. And I told Bob not to worry about sending it because generally the sheriff would send me the arrest reports and these press releases by mail. I told him, I said, I'm going to save your fingers a little bit of work. I'll just drop by and pick it up after lunch, which I did. Sheriff Mahaffey then informed me that Colby Johnson indeed did show up at the sheriff's office. He was, I can't really remember what Bob told me, but he said that Colby rattled on about this, that, and the other, informed him that you can't file charges on somebody because they said something bad about you. And Bob just basically said, look, I'm busy. I got things to do. You need to go. And of course, Colby took off. He stopped by Salt and Light Restaurant, who is, I guess, is currently owned still by Mark Murray there in Spearman. And from what I understood in that conversation, pulled more grandiosity with Mark, making him look like he's a big shot media man and this, that, and the other. I don't know whether Mark bought it or not. I kind of doubt it, folks. And then he trekked on back to Stinnett. Now, what I will say is, if I had really, really, really believed that Colby Johnson was coming to the Hansford County Sheriff's Office in Spearman, I'd have forgot about mowing that grass. And just like I told Bob when I stopped by to pick up that press release, I'd have put Colby in his place with words, real fast, real quick. I don't know where this individual comes up that, somebody talked bad about Texas Panhandle Updates and all this. I'm going to file charges on them. We've hit a brick wall. Nobody will take the charges. And it's because I guess Colby is not educated enough to know that you can say something bad about somebody like, well, your webpage sucks. Your webpage stinks. Then he wants to go file charges on somebody. He wants to make a felony issue, make a mountain out of a molehill. And I'm going to tell you folks why he does this. Anybody that has been convicted of what he has been convicted of in Gray County, Texas, has it in their mind that they need to do time too, just like I did. And yes, Colby Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, he did 2 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institution Division. And again, we're going to talk about that here before we get off the chat because we're at our halfway mark now. So and we're talking about Colby Johnson. He goes back to Stinnett or wherever he goes back to, probably whining to mama, whining to his wife, whining to his neighbors, whatever. We can't do anything. So let's bump it up a little bit. He goes, and Jason Richardson, which is over the Hutchinson County podcast, and I guess Jason's still doing that. I haven't spoke to him since we podcasted together. This is where Jason got into podcasting due to my chat broadcast. Uh, He goes and interviews Colby. Colby tells him literally a bunch of garbage because what Colby, again, folks, is grandiosity. Colby tries to look like the big shot when indeed Colby is not the big shot. He's a cyber squatter. He likes to copy and paste articles. He likes to copy and paste photos, but then he likes to put his own writing into it. He tries to assume what is going on, and he does take a little bit from what he reads in the articles and twist them around a little bit. And this is something that a professional media person does not do. I mean, you know, where I'm going with this, ladies and gentlemen, is Texas Panhandle Updates. Yeah, that's his thing, but Colby lacks a little bit. And let me first of all explain what I mean by that. If you've ever looked at his logo on his page, he's got the Texas Panhandle going clear down to Lubbock, down and covering all of Lubbock County. Okay. First of all, Lubbock is not in the Texas Panhandle. There are only 26 counties that make up the Texas Panhandle, from the northwest corner of Dallam County to the southeast part of the valley down in the Texas Panhandle in Childress County. Okay, Lubbock is not involved in that, and those counties above Lubbock County. But he's got this stretched down all the way down to Lubbock. I mean, why don't you just stretch it all the way down to Brownsville, okay, in Cameron County, and call it Texas Panhandle Updates? He lacks intelligence on this. Something else about his page that a lot of people don't agree with. And Colby, he's like the parody page. He goes by numbers. Okay, we don't go by numbers here in Amarillo. We go by listeners. Okay, I could care less about numbers, but some people, unfortunately, are fascinated with numbers. So what he actually does, he's sitting his bearded butt up there in Hutchinson County, and as soon as a fire breaks out, or there's a traffic accident in Amarillo. Folks, we all know it's 60 miles from Amarillo to Stinnett, okay? He's got to get on there and find one of these news pages down here in Amarillo, whether it's KAMR, KVII, or KDFA, News Channel 10, and he's got to get it on his page. And he's an hour away. I mean, hell, he's not even in Amarillo. And then, of course, there has to be that logo that comes out, a slow down, pull over, or get pulled over. Like people don't already know the law. Apparently, Mr. Johnson lacks the education to know that people already know the law. I think one of the reasons that he continuously does this, ladies and gentlemen, is because the people that are down on his level, the idiots, he's making sure that the idiots know the law. Okay. So, traffic accidents, fires in the Texas Panhandle, and sometimes trucking companies, there's a load of hay that they've got that came, it shifted on the trailer a little bit, and there's a problem with that. He's got to make a mountain out of a molehill with all of that. And he's, folks, he's not what you think he is. He is a person out there that is trying to make you think that he can cover all 26 counties. And of course, with his logo, we'll even add more counties because now we're going all the way down to Lubbock. That he is on top of all 26 counties in the Texas Panhandle and can update the news instantly as it happens. Mr. Johnson has a false sense of reality. Again, he has to just surf the internet constantly, find something that he feels is newsworthy. People sitting in the net could care less about an accident on Interstate 40 here in Amarillo, unless, of course, it has their family member involved in it. Now that's a different ballgame, and I will give an exception to that. But for the most part, you take somebody up in Lipscomb County, in a little bitty community of Lipscomb, I mean, a courthouse in the middle of a horse pasture, if you will. Those people up there could care less if there's a traffic accident in Amarillo or in Canyon or down in Tulia or something like that. But no, Mr. Johnson has to get on there and surf around And he's got to be the big shot and get all that posted when other reputable news media agencies have already posted it for Amarillo. You folks see where I'm going with this? Grandiosity at its finest. Now, let's talk about the title card, the deep, dark criminal history that Colby Johnson hides. And as a very intelligent person, I think Colby Johnson is fooling himself because there's more people that know about this Mr. Johnson than you realize. But in your grandiosity, false sense of security mindsake, you think you have more people fooled than you really have. Brenda Sims Johnson herself told me out of her own mouth that her son did not have any type of criminal history. I have seen articles where Colby Johnson has typed on Texas Panhandle Updates. People have asked him what the law is on something. And he has made the remarks, and yes, I have these screenshotted on my computer. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the law because I've never been in trouble with the law. Well, Mr. Johnson, I hate to differ with you, but I'm going to let the listeners and even the people that read TPU all over the Texas Panhandle, folks, I'm here to tell you that yes, indeed, he does have a criminal history, especially in Gray County, Texas, and this is Pampa. Now, I will tell you folks this, that under the government code of Texas 411.085, again, that is Texas government code section 411.085. It talks about the unauthorized obtaining, use, or disclosure of criminal history record information. I am not able to legally post what I received through the Texas Public Information Act from the I can reveal it on the Hutchinson County Sheriff's side, but I can't on the Gray County or the Texas DPS confirmed public website because it does contain his birth date, it does contain his social security number, it contains something called an SID number, court cost, booking information, mug shots, and things like that. That is a Class B misdemeanor to release that information. But before I get off the podcast, and it'll only cost you $3.32, I'm going to tell you folks where you can go to see this information. Okay. We sent in a Freedom of Information Act to the Hutchinson County Sheriff's Office in Stinnett, Texas. I did get a return back from them, and they did indicate that Colby Johnson does not have a criminal record in Hutchinson County. Blaine Kemp, I'm sure a lot of you remember that name. He was the former sheriff of Hutchinson County just a couple of years ago. And as a matter of fact, he was the youngest sheriff ever elected in Texas to hold that position. I traveled down to Stinnett one day and I met with Sheriff Kemp then. He informed me that they've been trying to put Colby in jail for a while. When he got in office, that Colby went up there, bad-mouthed him, bad-mouthed one of his dispatchers. He did tell me that Colby did have a criminal record, but I would have to go through the proper channels to find that information. I'm sure a lot of you probably remember Sheriff Kemp. He got into some problems. Stalking charges were filed on him. I'm not going to get into that. That is his own personal business. I don't even know what the outcome of that was. I will say that I believe that Blaine Kemp is a good man. At least he was when I met him at the sheriff's department there in Stinnett. And so, pulling his criminal record out of Hutchinson County, ladies and gentlemen, there is no record. Now, there is some minor brush-ins with the Nebraska Department of Public Safety. It's not anything to really talk about. It's minor skirmishes that he got into up there in Alliance. And in Tampa, ladies and gentlemen, this is a completely different ballgame. He has been arrested for no driver's license. And he also, and Colby, if you're listening to this, I'm not against you. I'm going to try to help you with something if you'll listen to me because I know the law. Okay, I've studied it. And then we're going to get into the big conviction, if you will. Colby does have an arrest for assault family violence. It was through Pampa, again, the Gray County Sheriff's Office. The disposition of the court did say that it was deferred. And ladies and gentlemen, what that means is that the court did not find him finally guilty of that offense of assault family violence. Rather, what they did is they gave him something called deferred adjudication. And what that meant was he was actually placed on probation for 1 year. And the way that that works, what I've read, is that if you successfully complete your probation, you don't commit any offense in Texas, this state, or any other state, you have no more arrest, that the court wipes your record clean. Looking down on the printout through the Texas DPS that we did acquire through the public information database, that charge against him was dismissed through the 31st Judicial District in Wheeler County. Now, what I want to tell you folks is that Mr. Johnson may not know this, or anybody else out there that has ever been arrested for deferred adjudication. Let me explain something to you. Yes, it does mean you were not found guilty. The problem is the arrest record is still there, and that's how we found it with Colby Johnson. The Texas Department of Public Safety maintains three databases in the state: the public database, the secure database, and the law enforcement database. They also maintain and will publish all convictions and deferred adjudications. Now, this arrest occurred many, many years ago with Mr. Johnson. And if any of you, including Mr. Johnson, have a deferred adjudication that you have gone through, I am here to tell you that there is relief to get that off your record. It is called an order of non-disclosure. I'm sitting here reading this. I'm not going to read it verbatim because I don't have enough time. We've only got about 15 minutes left on the podcast. But what you can do, and this also includes you as well, Colby Johnson, is you can go back to the 31st Judicial Court. You would have to have a lawyer. And they can do what is called an order of non-disclosure on you because you were not found guilty of assault family violence. You pled guilty to it, but the court cut you a break. It's because you didn't have anything on your record prior to that. What they do is they seal that record. So what that means is that law enforcement can see it, but by Texas law, they cannot reveal it to anyone, and it does not count against you. A lot of employers, especially if you're trying to get into law enforcement or armed security or something like that, even though you pled guilty to it and the courts found you not guilty, a lot of them still look at it as, well, you pled guilty, whether the judge found you guilty or not. But in the case of Mr. Johnson, he did plead guilty. They did do deferred adjudication. Again, he was placed on 1 year probation. And apparently he successfully got off probation and they dismissed that charge against him. So, no, Mr. Johnson does have an arrest for that, but he does not have a conviction. What he does have a conviction for is in February of 2011, ladies and gentlemen, he was arrested for arson. It's a second-degree felony. It carries a penalty of 2 to 20 years maximum in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institution Division and up to a $10,000 fine. I am looking at his court cost. I am looking at all of that. I am not going to reveal that because that is part of the Privacy Act in Texas. That is part of the government code section. And we are going to show respect for Mr. Johnson. We're not going to reveal all that information on him. But I will tell you that Mr. Johnson did plead guilty to second-degree arson in Gray County. He was sentenced to 2 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institution Division. And that is that. He is a convicted arsonist, point blank. Excuse me. This is another reason I believe that he likes to post fire pictures on Texas Panhandle Updates. This is the reason on my title card talking about him that I basically put the flames of fire around him. He is a convicted arsonist. Now, I do want to say something. If any of you out there know anything about the law, there is something called in the Texas Penal Code 4212 Section 20. You go down and you read it, and it talks about set aside of conviction. Now, there are certain crimes, and these crimes are considered 3G offenses, that a person cannot have their record dismissed that they commit. Arson, second degree arson, and there's three degree arsons in Texas. There's first, second, third degree. Well, Mr. Johnson was convicted of second degree arson, and basically what second degree is he burned down a structure that wasn't no one was living there. It was not habit. No, there was no habit there. Fortunately, second degree arson can be set aside. It can be dismissed. But if you go down, you investigate this on your own time, 421220 of the Penal Code, Mr. Johnson cannot get this off of his record ever because he went to the penitentiary. He was very, very lucky that he only got the minimum time of 2 years through, and the 31st Judicial District does cover Gray and Wheeler County. And it does show on the record that it was done through Wheeler County, although more than likely he was convicted in Gray County. But yes, for all you listeners out there, Colby Johnson is a convicted felon. He was convicted. He's an arsonist, and I believe that this is one reason he enjoys posting all these fire pictures is because he played with matches, but he got burnt. Okay, and this is where we're at with this now. Because of the Texas government code, and I'm not able to post these photos. I mean, yeah, folks, I could go ahead and do it. It's a Class B misdemeanor, and I could go to jail for that. And I'm choosing not to do that. I have a lot of professional licenses, and even though it would be a misdemeanor offense. I'm not going to put myself in that position. But I'm sure a lot of you out there are saying, "Well, Alan, can you prove this?" Well, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I can prove this, and I want you to listen to me very closely. You remember me earlier talking about it only will cost you $3.32 to do this. If you need proof of what I have just told you, I'm going to tell you how you can go see it with your own eyes. But remember also, it applies to you. You cannot disclose it in the actual printouts, such as the Gray County Sheriff's Office or the Texas Department of Public Safety. Anybody can pull a Freedom of Information Act on Colby Johnson. All you have to know is his name and his date of birth. Okay. All you have to do, and that actually, ladies and gentlemen, is free. If you have the right wording, you submit that to the Gray County Sheriff's Office, and they are bound by law to release that information to you because it's public record. It goes through the courts, which is public record. All you have to do to see this complete arson conviction is to go to the Texas Department of Public Safety's webpage, texasdps.gov. You will find a link within that page that talks about criminal record search. And you click on that link. If you don't have an account, you will have to set an account up. To set the account up is free of charge. But the DPS is very, very strict about wanting to know who you are. You don't have to give a reason of why you're obtaining a criminal record. but you have to put in your name, where you live, your credit card information, and there's a caveat that you have to read and agree to, and then you pay $3.32, and it gives you a token. In this case, you would put Johnson Colby 12/17/1993, and it will open up to his criminal history. I invite anybody to go do the same thing to me through the Texas DPS website, because this is the only official government website that law enforcement uses across the country. They don't go through these third-party reporting companies, whitepages.com, and all that junk. They go through what is on the law enforcement database. I invite you folks to go run me down on the Texas DPS website. Just put Fitz as the last name. You put Trey as the first name, Trey. My date of birth is May 23rd, 1966. I got nothing to hide except a 1992 conviction for DWI. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm man enough to admit that. And yes, I can have that taken off my record. I can actually have that, an order of non-disclosure done on me as well. But that's all you're going to find on my record. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, being stupid and being drunk. But I've been man enough to admit what I have on mine. And now you know what Mr. Colby Johnson has on his. Before I close out on this edition of the Alan Fitz podcast, I want to say something. And it doesn't matter to me what people back in the East say. And it really doesn't matter to me what you people here in Amarillo or Spearman or Stinnett or Fritch or wherever you may be at. It doesn't matter to me what you think either. And I'm going to tell you something from where I come from. And I guess, ladies and gentlemen, it was the way that I was raised. Okay, Colby Johnson is a convicted arsonist from February of 2011. That was his conviction date. He also did a little bit of TYC time as well as a juvenile. Just because Colby Johnson is a convicted arsonist doesn't mean that he's any least better than anybody else out there. Because looking at his entire criminal history, Nebraska, Texas, and Gray County, there is one good thing I can say about Colby Johnson. And I'm man enough to say this. Colby Johnson did not find the definition of insanity during his criminal history days. And let me explain, folks, what I mean by that. To learn the definition of insanity, that means that a person does the same thing over and over and over again, but they expect different results. Case in point, I know of an individual, and I don't know whether this guy is alive, dead, still in the penitentiary, or what. Got about 7 DWIs from the town of Kirbyville, way, way over in deep East Texas of Jasper County. And it took about 6 of them before they got tired of him and they sent him to the penitentiary. Got out of the penitentiary in less than a week. He was already back in jail for DWI again. He went back to the penitentiary somewhere out there in Marlin, Texas, out there around Waco somewhere. That person, and I'm not going to call his name, that's the definition of insanity. That's what that man was doing. He learned the definition of insanity. He kept getting DWI after DWI after DWI, but he was expecting different results. He didn't expect to go to jail. He didn't expect to go to the penitentiary. I guess he expected them to take him on a picnic. I don't know. But Colby Johnson didn't do this, ladies and gentlemen. He got convicted of arson, and I am happy to report that his record has been clean since then. at least through Texas DPS and at least through the Gray County Sheriff's Office in Pampa, Texas. So Mr. Johnson did not learn the definition of insanity at this point. He still has a long way to go in life. And that is the Colby Johnson story. Yes, I'm sure a lot of you have seen Mr. Johnson talking about, he's panicking, this, that, and the other. He's going to get his lawyers. He's going to sue me for doing this. He talked about the same thing 3 years ago, and I still haven't got the letter from his lawyer yet. My God, isn't the United States Postal Service slow on delivering the mail? Coming up next Friday on our podcast, I'm going to talk about something that I'm sure everybody out there in every state can relate to. It's Walmart. A lot of people, a lot of the customers that go to Walmart are making the Walmart image look extremely bad. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the title card on this podcast, especially through AlanFitz.com. Some of you may not have, but I can assure you, if Sam Walton were still alive today, a lot of you idiots out there that shop at Walmart in your pajamas and going in there showing your butt cracks, old nasty crusty toenails and all this stuff, you'd be banned from Walmart for life. It's some of the customers that are making one of the world's largest retailers look completely bad. I'm going to break it down. We'll talk about it next Friday right here on the chat. Ladies and gentlemen that are listening to this podcast this afternoon, it is not a show that I wanted to do, but it's something that had to be done because you see, you reap what you sow. You started talking bad about me. I didn't do anything to you. And I was waiting for the time to get right before I fed it right back to you. So I'm sure I'll be waiting another 3 years for at least the first letter to come from your so-called lawyer. Also, I want to throw up that one lady that I did talk to here in Amarillo, and it was not too long ago, told me that he could not keep a job, didn't have any money. And his mother, she said, I don't know if you saw this on Facebook, and ladies and gentlemen, actually I did. But his mother was laying in the bed filming herself, and a cockroach was crawling up the wall. You don't film stuff like that, okay? You need to cut the cockroach part out. Anyway, yes, Colby Johnson is a convicted arsonist out of Gray County, according to the Wheeler County 31st Judicial District. That'll wrap it up for this edition of the chat, also known as the Alan Fitz Podcast. And again, we will talk about some of the scum and the crap that goes into Walmart. Folks, it's something that you definitely want to listen to next week. It just makes me, and we don't like talking about Walmart on this podcast, but some of these people that go shopping in Walmart absolutely make me sick. They don't have any respect for anybody. And yes, parody, I'm going to say it again. They ain't got no morals. They ain't got no scruples. They don't have anything. But in today's society, we live in a different generation of time. What else can you expect? That's Walmart on the podcast next Friday, right here on this YouTube channel. As always, you can tune in at any given time you like. Replay back any of the podcasts right here at youtube.com/at Alan Fitz Podcasting. And I invite you to go to AlanFitz.com, my main webpage for the Alan Fitz Podcasting, and check it out. We have added some new pages to it. We always keep what's coming up on the next podcast at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance, so you know what you're getting into when you tune in to the show. With that being said, my friends, until we meet again next Friday for the chat, Have a great Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you back next Friday. Same time, same channel. Until such time, this is Alan Fitz saying bye for now.